we know it's Revolution Week. And even what you've been in the company, what, just six months now? Is it even that?
About six months, maybe. Yeah.
And here you are, man. World title matchup on pay-per-view. Hangman Adam Page. It's one of them, man. Like, I've enjoyed you and the Elite, and all of that kind of character stuff, even Orange Cassidy and those feuds and where it's brought us. But yeah, man, Adam Cole in those big time matchups. That's what I wanted. That's what a lot of fans wanted. You must be, I guess, salivating at the prospect of like, okay, big time matchup, pay-per-view on, by the way, a stacked card. Man, the pressure's there, but that must be exhilarating.
Yeah. So again, pressure is something that goes hand in hand with wanting to accomplish the things that I and so many other people want to accomplish. What comes with wanting to become a world champion or main eventing pay-per-views is a ton of pressure. And especially in a company like AEW, where not only is the roster stacked, but again, for pay-per-view cards, they bring the big guns, man. Like this is, like you said, such a stacked card going into this show. And again, I have had such an amazing time in AEW, but at the end of the day, I wanted to get to this moment where I'm main eventing AEW's Revolution for the AEW World Championship, being in that pressure cooker situation of not only having to deliver, but follow all these excellent matches that come before us. So I am, of course, I'm nervous. I'm always nervous before I perform or talk or wrestle every single week. But this type of nervous is like that nervous that I live for. You know what I mean? I am ready to rock and roll at Revolution.
And that's the thing. I was going to ask you, 6 months on, the decision to leap, kind of how does that feel? But, we're talking about stacked cards. That's not new to you because, in my opinion, and I think I've said this to you before, takeovers were the best shows in the world at one point. That's my opinion anyway.
I agree.
And, it's a shame that I guess we've moved past the takeover era. I know they're not even calling them that anymore. So in a way, although, I don't know if this lined up at all, you must be satisfied anyway because AEW is going so well. But I guess the NXT that we knew, that being left behind, I guess that kind of makes it easier too, does it, in a way?
I guess to some extent. But to me, pro wrestling and so many different situations and eras and things like that, things constantly evolve and change to fit whatever needs most benefit said company or said fan base. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So like I look back on that era and that time I was in NXT. And again, I will never, ever say to anyone ever that I in any way, shape or form had a bad experience at NXT. I loved my time there. I really, really did. From the crew we were working for to the roster that I worked alongside, like you said, we really did feel at that point when TakeOver was really, really hot, that we're like, these are the best shows in the world. From the fans, the fact that it was only 5 matches, every single match got time. Like it was just so many magical things that kind of lined up with NXT at that time. But again, NXT now is doing great stuff for itself as well. It's just it's a different vision and a different product. Yeah. And AEW, like I said, is a place that I really, really did want to be involved in because I think a lot of people coincide the fact that, he must have not enjoyed himself, and that's why he went to AEW. That's not true at all. I loved my time in NXT, but I'm having even more fun in AEW. I'm around my girlfriend Britt Baker all the time. I'm around a bunch of my close friends. I had a lot of close friends at NXT who a couple of them have come over now to AEW, which is awesome. The fans themselves are like the fans themselves. It feels like I've said this before. I remember my first few weeks there. I'm like, oh my God, this is a takeover once a week as far as like the crowd involvement and the crowd investment. And that's what a big reason that takeovers were so special. So, man, I'm happy for my time in NXT. I'm happy for them and the direction they're going now. And again, I could not be happier in AEW, man. I love it here.
I mean, look at how you're killing it. The decision can only have aged well. And speaking of things that aged well, last time that we spoke, I remember I was like, in NXT, who do you think looks good, right? You had Isaiah Swerve Scott, Joe Gacy, and Carmelo Hayes, all three of whom, by the way, either in WWE or not, has skyrocketed, yes. I would say. AEW side of things, man, same question. Who have you looked at since you've been there and you're like, oh man, that guy is, he's going to push on and do great things? Because there's a ton.
There are so many of them, so many of them. It's not even funny. So, again, I could list names that to me are already superstars, like MJF and Sammy Guevara and Jungle Boy. I mean, the list goes on and on. Darby Allin. These guys are already rock stars, but they're still, people forget how young they are. Like MJF and Jungle Boy are like young to early mid 20s, which is just absurd. I remember when I was the young guy in wrestling promotions, and now I'm 32, and I'm like, oh man, I'm the veteran now. But yeah, so it's amazing how far those guys have come in such a short amount of time. But there's someone else who I would love to step into the ring with someday, who is, I think, God, he might be 20 or 21 at the oldest. Dante Martin. He is just an unbelievable high flyer. He can do some of the coolest things I've ever seen. He's going to do tremendously well. He's already done really well in AEW. And I think Hook is doing one hell of a job too. So I'm excited to see what happens with him as well. But the young talent in AEW, that's the thing, is AEW has a lot of established veteran wrestling stars who have put their time in, traveled the globe, all that stuff. But man, there's a lot of young guys and girls that people have not heard of and are now getting the chance to see them here on AEW. The most exciting thing with the fact that there's young talent and veterans, is I feel like I have 5 years of content, like fresh, original things to do with how stacked the talent pool is.
Just for mirroring's sake, because we had 3 names the last time I asked you, we've got Dante and Hook on this side. Have you got one more?
Dante, Hook. Oh boy, let me think.
I've got to tell you that again, I'm super fascinated by the Daniel Bryan Moxley storyline, where they've got like Daniel Garcia, Lee Moriarty hanging around. Like there's and that's what I mean. That's just even a whole nother conversation. But man, like it feels like the depth.
It really, really does. And everyone has different strengths, because I'm really, really glad that you brought up Garcia, because he's my third one. Because I remember seeing him for the first time and being so impressed with his presence at such a young age, and for this first time experience on national television. I think about the nerves and the anxiety that goes into this job, and he carries himself really, really well. He does some really cool stuff. So yeah, Daniel Garcia is going to be my third pick.
That's a fantastic pick. Let's talk.
Lee is great too, by the way. Yeah, Lee Moriarty is amazing. So I'll do a top 4.
There you go.
I can't not mention Lee. I can't.
You could do that question and do 3 different answers, and you 3 different times. You'd be fine.
Exactly.
Let's talk about quote unquote undisputed era being in AEW these days. Sans Roddy, of course, but nevertheless, the gang is back together on AEW. Of course, you were the first domino to fall, as it were, and then Bobby was released, so that opportunity arose, and then Carl's contract came later. I guess how much of a role did you play in the recruitment of both men to eventually pass?
Here's the thing. Selfishly, both professionally and personally, I would scream at the top of a mountain to say, hey, we need to get Bobby Fish and Kyle O'Reilly. But as far as them getting hired, I had nothing to do with that. Bobby Fish got hired because he's Bobby Fish, and Kyle O'Reilly got hired because he's Kyle O'Reilly. So of course I was the first person in line to go, yes, you're here. This is awesome. Let's go. But I by no means was in anyone's ear or saying, oh, listen, you can't pass up on these guys. They're really, really good. AEW knew how good Bobby Fish and Kyle O'Reilly were right out the gate. Again, very little involvement as far as the quote unquote bringing them into AEW. Yeah. But absolutely the first person in the front row in line, throwing my arms in the air going, yes, we got him. So yeah, I'm so happy that they're here. So
and happy. Also obviously amazing though, because it kind of bleeds into where you are now. You're working, not only are you in the same company again, but immediately together again, which is amazing because you was already with the super elite, and now we've got that bleeding in, and we saw obviously last week, where that could possibly go in, and people get excited, man. Like you're like a guy who's got his cake and eating it too, Adam.
Right. Exactly. Well, think about it, man. We got the again, two of the arguably most dominant factions in recent memory in the elite and the Undisputed Era together. I mean, you can't beat it. That's it. That's the crew, the ultimate faction.